Hello, everybody. Hola a todos. Thank you for joining Student Energy's presentation of the Global Youth Energy Outlook, a youth-led perspective on the global clean energy transition. Today's agenda will be focused on showcasing the Global Youth Energy Outlook, a one-of-kind research initiative led by Student Energy, including providing you some insights from our research and intergenerational collaboration with governments and sectors. The presentation will be followed by a panel discussion with the youth behind this global research, as well as an overview of next steps for this project and avenues for engagement. So the big question is why young people and why governments should take us into account. The answer is clear, and the first insights of the outlook demonstrates that over 50% of young people want their local governments to commit to a net zero target by 2030, and less than 20% of youth feel their perspectives and values on energy issues are valued by the government and the private sector. So the urgent need to transform the energy system to meet global emission reductions and overcome inequities in the system are some of the greatest challenges of our time. Interconnected with the entire sustainable development agenda, business as usual will not work to achieve an energy transition that leaves no one behind while deploying the solutions needed to mitigate the climate crisis. Mobilizing millions of young people around the world to work on this challenge is a significant opportunity to accelerate the energy transition, and young people are already providing their abilities to influence change through global mobilization efforts and by designing innovative solutions. Therefore, it is critical that actors across the energy system are equipped with the data needed to understand how to effectively mobilize this generation of youth ready to accelerate solutions now into their futures. Championed by current energy leaders, the Student Energy Global Youth Energy Outlook will be a mechanism that facilitates intergenerational collaboration to deliver an energy future that meets the needs of all generations and effectively addresses the climate crisis in a globally equitable way. Hello once again, everybody. Hola a todos, es un gran placer estar aquí con ustedes. My name is Paola Flores Carvajal. I am a Student Energy's Regional Coordinator for Latin America. I am 22 years old, studying industrial engineering in Sucre in Bolivia. During my childhood, as a descendant of a Quechua woman, my grandmother, I used to live in the rural areas, and there I saw two facts that changed my life. First, I saw how difficult the living conditions of rural people were with no access to electricity and less with access to education or health quality. And second, I always saw that when we talk about climate change, the ones that are living its effects are indigenous communities and the most vulnerable groups of our societies. So, as a young person, I always wanted to be the voice of those who cannot be heard and ask for climate justice and energy transition. And that is why I am here now. And I'm also a believer that young people can not only be activists for climate change and energy transition, but also change makers in the construction of a more sustainable future. So now let's talk a little bit about the organization behind the Global Youth Energy Outlook, Student Energy. Student Energy is a global non-profit organization empowering next generation of leaders who are accelerating the transition to a sustainable, equitable energy future. We work with a network of 50,000 young people from over 120 countries to build the knowledge, skills, and networks they need to take action on energy. We collaborate with governments, companies, and organizations to facilitate meaningful youth engagement, make space for youth in energy decision making, and mobilize resources to support youth led energy solutions. Student Energy is building a movement of young people around the world who are shaping the future of energy. Millions of young people across the world are looking to help shape the future of action on energy and climate. Student Energy's Global Youth Energy Outlook is set to ensure that research and data is available to bridge the gap between youth and governments, business, and decision makers so that they can begin working together to address our most urgent needs in the global sustainable energy transition. The objectives of the Global Youth Energy Outlook are close the data gap that exists on youth engagement on energy, increase the accountability of decision makers to transition to a sustainable and equitable energy system, and then bridge communications between young people, the public sector, and the private sector to enable new partnerships and collaborations. The value of this report is never before captured selection of qualitative data and statistical inferences about how young people perceive and understand energy and related issues, and how they are engaging in cross cutting energy issues. Governments, international organizations, and the private sector will be able to observe the value sets, principles, and social cultural habits critical to how young people see effective energy system change happening. The project research is still underway and will engage 50,000 young people in the process. The methodology follows two phases. The first phase is a global questionnaire which gathers core opinion data from participants on what they would like to see for the clean energy transition in their regions. The second phase of research are the regional dialogues, which are collaborative sessions that focus on unique challenges, nexus issues, and co-benefits and externalities related to the transition. The sessions are fully youth-led in their design and implementation. Examples of topics addressed in regional dialogues include achieving global energy access, clean cooking and health, energy efficiency and conservation, and energy policies and regulations. Student Energy will be hosting a total of 30 to 40 regional dialogues and workshops across the Outlook's 10 regions. The Global Youth Energy Outlook is led by 12 regional coordinators representing 10 key regions of the world that will engage a pool of 5,000 youth across each region. Regional coordinators, including myself, are working with Student Energy and a diverse set of knowledge partners in developing and implementing the harmonization methodology that will be used to do a comprehensive study of youth in over 130 countries. We will now be shifting our focus to review some early insights from the Global Youth Energy Outlook based on our research engagement with different regions, countries, governments, and sectors. From the first round of the Global Youth Energy Outlook questionnaire outreach in Latin America, where youth participants from 20 countries, it was clearly highlighted that current government willpower policies and regulations are the top barrier to achieving a sustainable energy transition, and especially in comparison to other global regions. This was followed by the current energy industry, Latin America's economic conditions, and general public or community support. Government policy was also highlighted as the most important factor to accelerating the transition, followed by the organizational leadership, technological advancements, individual behavior, and work done by civil society. I am highlighting these responses in particular as it was very interesting to me that young people in Latin America believe that government policies are the most important factor to accelerating the clean energy transition, yet the biggest barrier. It was highlighted that the current energy system in Latin America, being very fossil fuel dependent, is another barrier to achieving this future. There seems to be hope that with pushing for the transition, youth can also achieve structural changes more broadly in the region. And I would like to give this message. Latin American government, our region has been living a social, economic, and political crisis related to energy. We, as young people, ask for an energy transition, but for that, we need you in this process. What we ask as young people is that governments could create formal spaces where young people could not only say their ideas, but also be part of an intergenerational job to build together policies, projects, or initiatives for the energy transition that our region needs right now. Thanks, I will pass the word to Tiana.
Thank you, Paolo. So, hello everyone. My name is Tiana Filippo. I am a 24-year-old Métis woman from Stonewall, Manitoba in Canada. I have a background in education in biosystems engineering from the University of Manitoba, where I specialize in environmental engineering. So I am the North American Regional Coordinator for the Global Youth Energy Outlook with Student Energy. I am particularly passionate about sustainable community energy as I have worked in many different remote and northern Indigenous communities and seeing how they are very reliant still on diesel energy. In Canada, we have energy poverty present in many communities, and I feel like this is not spoken of regularly. I can really relate to what Paulo said about Indigenous people having the least responsibility to climate change, but they really suffer from the consequences of improperly used resources all around the world. So, this is why I am very passionate about ensuring these underrepresented groups and communities have sustainable energy to live vibrant lives. I am currently employed at an engineering company called Urban Systems as an engineer in training, and I work with community energy plans and sustainable water systems for Canadian Indigenous communities. So, a little bit about the country profile in Canada. The Global Youth Energy Outlook's research agenda in Canada has actively been working with a set of diverse stakeholders and interest groups. This includes governments, research institutions, civil society groups that help shape the project's outreach strategies, such as Indigenous youth councils and Francophone communities. Another key supporter and sponsor of the Global Youth Energy Outlook in the Canadian research agenda is the Natural Resource Canada. They have underscored the federal commitment to support young people in shaping the region's clean energy future. The ministerial plays an important role in incorporating inputs and questions on proposed topics that support emerging priorities areas around the energy transition in Canada, as well as inform our research more broadly. These areas will be engaged in the project's research in the region, and they include the heavy industry, a difficult to decarbonize sectors, the Pan Canadian Innovation Ecosystem, energy access in Indigenous and Northern communities, COVID 19 jobs and the green recovery, cities, and the built environment. Other key features of the research agenda in Canada include bilingual workshops in both English and French, which really gives a truly Canadian output on these regional dialogues, hosting events at various youth outreach points across the country, and delivering pan North American engagements with young people to highlight Canada and the United States of America's active collaboration, and committing to climate targets, and the even more recent announcement of the roadmap for a renewable US-Canada partnership at the US-hosted Leaders Summit earlier this year. So some key learnings from the workshops that I facilitated already mentioned the different thematic priorities include for the innovation ecosystem in Canada, acknowledging the opportunities for developing technologies and solutions that serve the needs of Indigenous communities, really redirecting funding to support the upfront capital costs associated with validating green ventures, and highlighting the importance of equity and honoring and preserving Indigenous knowledge, land, and perspectives in the development of new solutions were really focused. The other group workshop, the heavy industry workshop, I noticed the youth participants felt a very high sense of urgency in decarbonizing the sector. This was especially in comparison to other global regions that were engaged on this topic. And I believe this is because the heavy industry sector in Canada accounts for 11% of the greenhouse gas emissions, whilst employing over 1 million people. So youth entering this economy, they really feel a sense of responsibility for decarbonizing the sector, as this is a field they may be entering very shortly. And I'll pass it on to Lynette to introduce herself.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Linette Knudsen, and I'm 27 years old. I'm the regional coordinator for Europe, and I currently live in Copenhagen, in Denmark, where I study global development. I've always wanted to contribute to making the world a better and more equal place to live and be. And until a few years ago, I would never have thought that I could contribute to the clean energy transition as a social scientist. Having grown up in Denmark, I've mainly associated energy with the technical installations such as power lines and windmills, leaving me to think that the clean energy transition would be a technical issue for engineers to solve, as it had never been mentioned in any of my sociology courses during my undergrad. So it wasn't until I did a master's in global environment, politics, and society that I realized that the energy system is also social and political, as it underpins so much of our everyday life and determining what opportunities we are provided with, as Paula also mentioned. Since then, I've worked actively to bridge the gap between technical and social aspects of the clean energy transition. And I'm really excited about sharing some of the insights from our sector engagement with you today. So the Global Youth Energy Outlook works with a set of diverse knowledge partners that support the research and analysis phase of the project. They peer review the final report content and support the professional development of youth leading the research. For instance, in December 2020, we partnered with the Leadership Group for Industry Transition, a secretariat hosted by the Stockholm Environment Institute and led by the governments of Sweden, India, and the United States, to deliver 4 youth-led global workshops based on gathering the perspectives of youth on priorities in the heavy industry transition. The workshops were held in 4 regions of the Outlook. So one was held in Latin America, one in Southeast Asia, one in Europe, and one in North America, as Tiana said. The call to action was clear. Young people can act as agents of change as they bring new solutions and pursue meaningful opportunities to decarbonize the sector. The workshops focused on 4 key pillars in the heavy industry transition that were identified as significant for delivering on net zero ambitions. These were technology and innovation, policy and government, social change, and finance and investment. Participants in all regions agreed and highlighted that the following are significant to building decarbonization roadmaps in these pillars. Firstly, building local innovation systems for industry decarbonization that actively engage with youth. Secondly, creating direct pathways for young people to engage with policy design and decision-making that impacts their future. Thirdly, committing to industry transition that doesn't leave the current workforce behind or compromise future opportunities for youth. And lastly, investing in transition skills training in the current and future workforces. This will be critical for achieving both the Paris Agreement and the United Nations 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development in a sector that is difficult to decarbonize and accounts for approximately 25 to 30% of today's global greenhouse gas emissions. The workshops were supported by the Leadership Group for Industry Transition in the design to ensure that the outputs can be shared on the Energy Policy Development Table. The final insights brief was launched at a high-level ministerial summit in Sweden in December and shared amongst decision makers in the sector, including governments and industry. To me, this was such an incredible opportunity as I got to work closely with research and policy analysts on planning and facilitating the session, as well as with equipping youth participants with the core knowledge they needed on the sector, and to allow them to critically think about its challenges and also engage with the field more generally. Other supporting partners of the Global Youth Energy Outlook include DNV, the Government of Denmark, the Government of Sweden, and the Government of Canada. Student Energy also actively works with global youth organizations that support the community outreach strategies of the project and various industry partners that act as sector experts and reviewers to the research. So I will pass the word to Helen here.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Lynette. And we'll just move right along here. So great to be here today. I'm the Senior Director of Global Partnerships at Student Energy. And kind of originally the founder of the Global Youth Energy Outlook, though I don't feel as though it's led by me at this point, definitely led by the amazing regional coordinators who you've had the chance to meet today. And something that I do say quite a lot to really underscore the urgency of why the Global Youth Energy Outlook is so important is we have over 2 billion young people aged 18 to 30 around the world. And the transition to an equitable and sustainable energy system has never been a more urgent mission than it is now in this decade of action to 2030. So we really can't afford to leave 2 billion passionate, bright, inspiring young people out of this equation. And the Global Youth Energy Outlook is really a call to action to recognize and understand what young people are really calling for and what they see as priority actions for government and industry to take. So I'll just move along here. So the Global Youth Energy Outlook really has the potential to be a strong tool young people around the world can use to push for focused, concrete action at the right levels of government and decision making. However, the plan to launch and equip young people with the Global Youth Energy Outlook will be carefully executed to ensure that we leverage the confluence of energy activities in 2021. As we all know, there are a lot of reports and insights and findings that come out of the kind of energy and energy transition space. And so making sure that the Global Youth Energy Outlook is really understood as this new data set and is really feels like young people can use it effectively will be of utmost importance. So on the sector engagement side, we're working closely with governments around the world to center youth engagement in government planning. And at ministerial level events, such as here at the Clean Energy Ministerial, the High Level Dialogue on Energy coming up in September, and COP26 Glasgow in November. So as part of a consortium of youth members on the High Level Dialogues technical working groups, for example, I'm representing youth on innovation, technology, and data, where insights from the Global Youth Energy Outlook and from other global youth consultations we have led with the UNDP are feeding into the roadmap that will be backed by the High Level Dialogue on Energy's Global Champions and launched in September. So there really is this kind of roadmap that we're seeing of what we're doing here at the Clean Energy Ministerial, what is coming up in September, how this will carry on through to COP26 and of course beyond. And the public and private sector make up the primary audiences of the Global Youth Energy Outlook. And the purpose for that is we really see this report as being a tool that young people can use to push for action and collaboration with those audiences, with the public and private sector, who are in the process of making decisions today that will ultimately shape what our energy system looks like by 2030. So as well as building the organization's Student Energy's strategic partnership model, we have seen a rise in new youth-led initiatives around the world that call for a more coordinated approach to youth-led action on climate and energy. And these include other movements such as the SDG7 Youth Constituency Group, the European Youth Energy Network, and others. And so we've been working to align closely with these youth networks to ensure that there is a really supportive youth ecosystem that is promoting knowledge sharing, collaboration, and coordination across these shared youth missions for building youth perspectives and insights and values into the energy transition. So their support of the Global Youth Energy Outlook is also central in making sure the tool has traction and is being used by a wide global and inclusive network of young people. And engaging the youth sector offers opportunities to collaborate with each other virtually and at events in new and creative ways. So to break down what some of the key components of the actual report will look like. So they will include data sets conveying youth positions on different policy, technology, and cost-sharing scenarios that will make up this youth roadmap to 2030. Co-benefits and externalities are a really important part of the final report, as young people feel strongly that the global energy transition needs to be inclusive and leveraged as an opportunity to create more access to decent work and quality education, gender and social equality, environmental protection and stewardship, to name some of these co-benefits. Readers will be able to explore regional specific opinion data and pathways for collaboration between youth and actors that youth have outlined are kind of pathways that they want to be engaging in. So with regards to the Global Youth Energy Outlook in the context of this year's Clean Energy Ministerial, the Outlook aligns closely with the Clean Energy Ministerial Energy Education and Empowerment Initiative, as well as the Equal by 30 Gender Equality Campaign, of which Student Energy is a signatory organization. We recognize that the international energy community plays an important role in advocating for gender equity and local development to drive sustained long-term changes to the energy system. Student Energy is proud to have a gender-balanced network of youth around the world in our own network in over 120 countries, and we work to empower bottom-up action and center underrepresented voices in the energy transition. So what does our ultimate roadmap look like for the Global Youth Energy Outlook? You'll see that we have broken this down into 4 stages here for you to get a sense of what our timeline looks like. We have the finalization of research, including regional dialogues, the questionnaire, outreach, and analysis, which is happening now through to September. From September to October this year, you'll see that there is quite a confluence of different events and important kind of points to platform findings from the Outlook and have it really socialized among decision makers and leaders before the official launch at COP26 in Glasgow in November, and a final kind of comprehensive written report, which will complement the virtual platform launched in November, will be peer-reviewed and authored from November through to March of next year. So we will have a more comprehensive kind of written report as well to accompany that visual platform. So at this point, I'm very happy to welcome, I think it's everybody back up on the stage at this point in time, to hand it over to Jacky to moderate a panel discussion with all of us.
Amazing. Hi, everyone. Nice to see everyone's faces on screen here. My name is Jacky Bastian. I am the Digital Engagement Coordinator here at Student Energy, and I will be the moderator for this panel today. So just to start off, the Outlook is the first youth-led report of its kind, so we thought it was really important to have a really frank, open discussion around some of the key learnings and some of the reflections around this report. So to start us off right here, I'm just going to ask everyone to go around to say what your experience has been so far at this point in the Outlook. We're about a year in, we've got lots of awesome upcoming things, and I'd love to hear what your experience has been so far. So Tiana, can I ask you to start us off?
I would love to. Thank you, Jacky. So being part of the Global Youth Energy Outlook as an entire youth-led global project really reinstated that we are a progressive and passionate generation. So our ideas and thoughts are incredibly important. And I personally have more faith that if we can be more involved in the energy transition, that our world can adjust to sustainable energy, just and sustainable energy transition. But it's as long as we do have these youth and have their proper representation and voice. So above all, just being a part of the Global Youth Energy Outlook was so inspiring. I feel very humbled that I was one of the 12 young people leading this, as like youth are and should be active in the energy transition. And I think it just really like opened my eyes that doesn't matter like what kind of background you come from, like we all are very diverse, but it just really is important that we all like, you know, like follow our passion to bring like sustainable energy the future for us. And so yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jacky.
Yeah, that's great. It's very cool how we're all over the world, and that Outlook is really such a diverse and global perspective. And so, Lynette, do you maybe want to share some of your experiences as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think I will highlight 3 experiences just to limit it, because being a part of the Student Energy and the Global Youth Energy Outlook has really been an incredible journey that I could talk about forever. But first of all, I've definitely gained a deeper understanding of the global energy system, and seeing that all the regions and sub-regions may be different and have different priorities. There seems to be this collective urge amongst young people to increase the pace of the clean energy transition. And I also want to highlight the opportunity to work with global and local organizations, and I hope that we have convinced them that young people are a powerful force to be reckoned with. And then lastly, I just want to highlight all the other regional coordinators. It has really been inspirational to work alongside committed young people and see all their achievements. It has just been, it's a great experience.
Amazing. Thanks, Lynette. And Paula, can I ask you as well?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question, because I would say that being part of the Global Youth Energy Outlook was a life-changing experience, because to tell you the truth, I felt like a baby in the energy system where before of the Global Youth Energy Outlook, because I always wanted to work with energy, because as a child I was really passionate about energy and renewable energy, and I was looking for that space in the whole world that I could fit, and I met student energy, and I said, oh my god, I found a place. Working in the Global Youth Energy Outlook was incredible, because I had the best classmates as the regional coordinators. They are incredible. And I could say that I had the best university professors, like student energy staff and directors, because I was able just like to work with a lot of young people and hear about the real energy problems in my region. And also the Global Youth Energy Outlook helped me to understand that young people are really powerful in the energy transition and in climate advocacy. So I'm really grateful to be here now and share these amazing movements and this amazing work with everybody. Thanks.
Amazing. Thank you, Paula. So to kind of build off of that question, I'm going to toss it to Helen now. The Global Youth Energy Outlook is the first of its kind. This kind of stuff has never been done before with a youth-led team. Could you tell me a little bit about some of the key learnings so far that you can sort of recount from your experience?
Definitely. So I think the biggest one is, for me, that was something that I wasn't certain of going into this project at the beginning, was more on the partnership side. How is this idea or concept going to be received by the public and the private sector? You know, it's an entirely new project. There's no track record. We have our network of amazing youth that we can always kind of reference as proof that this project needs to exist. But ultimately, it was going to come down to which partners wanted to be part of this project. And that, for me, was a little bit of the proving ground for, is this project going to reach the audiences and the objectives that it is designed to do? And the response from the partner side was really inspiring to me. I feel like I get lots of chances to be inspired by our amazing youth network, which is so awesome, but it really is huge. It's a different kind of empowerment when you have large institutional actors really step up and say, yes, this is important. And we've been in the sector for decades, and we still believe that this is important. And this type of a project and a data set is what what we really need to accelerate systems change. So I would say kind of from a personal experience point of view, that's been my biggest learning, is that there is appetite. There is a real interest from these actors to have a tool like this to use and to inform their decision making. The second interesting kind of finding has been through the actual data that we're seeing from the Outlook itself. So one really interesting data point that my executive director and I have been referencing quite a bit is that less than 50% of young people have ever been asked their opinions on climate and energy before. And for us, that's such a shocking statistic because, you know, we're all the time asking young people what their opinions on climate and energy are. And it seems like such an obvious thing that needs to happen. You know, it's our future that that we're going to be living in, which will be shaped by the decisions made today. But it's not a majority of young people that are ever asked how they feel about different issues, and that really needs to change. And we're hoping that the Global Youth Energy Outlook can really be a powerful, collective, unified voice from young people to really make those people who aren't asking those questions sit up and pay attention.
That's so cool. And that 50% number is so huge. And I think that represents just so many youth. And I know from as a youth myself, I'd never been asked that question either. And I know that a lot of my network as well. So I think that's going to be really cool to have other people in different perspectives that have never really been asked those questions before come forward and be represented in the report. I'm going to ask the rest of the RCs. Did anyone else want to share any key learnings from the Outlook so far?
I think just the key learning is that, you know, like each region is so unique, and this has been touched a little bit before in this conversation, but I just think it's important to really elaborate because there's not like a one thing fixes all for the energy mix. You know, like there's so many like different components and people that are involved when looking into like different energy systems and energy mixes in different regions, and like really looking like deeper in that is like, okay, like the communities and like what kind of resources do they have at hand, and like really kind of deepening it into like involving like cultures and communities and different stakeholders from like different levels. I think really opened my eyes too, is just seeing like the vast amount of people involved, and also just really passionate about being involved as well, is a great takeaway that I got initially. And just, you know, I think like even the Outlook being so comprehensive in its questions, there's still so many questions and conversations that are needed to be had because of the complex energy system. So that's why the regional dialogues, I think, are also so important to have hosted like for the different regions, because they are different, and also because it just opens a chance for like open-ended responses from youth to build a roadmap to achieve the region's energy goals. Because like Helen said, like being asked what do you want to see for the energy future in your region may not be something that like these youth are asked, and as like statistics show, like it hasn't been. So having that opportunity, and like I think is really important, and that's one of my key takeaways that I really got out of it, was having like the importance of having these conversations.
That's amazing. Thank you, Tiana. And so to kind of go off of that, what kind of advice would you have for other young people, maybe who haven't been involved historically in the energy conversation or don't feel themselves reflected? What kind of advice would you give to other youth who want to be more involved and are looking to be more involved? Can I pass that to you, Lynette?
Yes, definitely. I think my main advice is don't overthink it, just do it. Because as I said in my introduction, if you I'd never imagined becoming a part of the clean energy transition. I studied sociology and I mainly did social science because I wanted to fight injustice, but I thought I would have to fight them in the educational sector, or like at a more structural, like welfare state, like fighting for the welfare state perspective. But then suddenly I found this opportunity provided by Student Energy to go to the 2019 Clean Energy Ministerial, and I got selected as one of the youth delegates, to my surprise, because my past experience with energy had only been 2 academic essays and 1 academic course, so I really felt like an imposter going there, but I also felt very engaged and just very like energetic for causing, like sparking this transition, because I'd learned that energy underpins so much of our everyday lives, that it's essential to have electricity to go to school if you want to work in the dark. And it's essential to have electricity to cool your food. Like all of these things that I've always taken for granted are just not taken for granted everywhere else in the world. And maybe that's kind of the place we should start if we want to make a more fair and just and equal world. So I'm forever grateful that Student Energy believed in me back then and gave me the opportunity to get involved with and engage with young people and policymakers, and kind of realizing that me as a social scientist is able to engage in this field and inspire others in the same way as every single youth delegate at the CEM and every single regional coordinator has really inspired me. So I would just say, just jump into it. It doesn't matter where you're from, or like if you don't feel equipped to do it, because Student Energy is definitely here to have your back, and it provides you with the skills that are necessary to get involved.
What you said, Lynette, really hit home for me, because I myself was always so worried about like choosing a specific degree that would really allow me a chance to bridge and like enter the energy sector. Like I honestly spent like so many hours and just struggled really picking like the perfect engineering program that would allow me to work in clean energy, because I was always so passionate about it. And then I realized, you know what, like what I love about the Global Youth Energy Outlook is it doesn't require youth to have like a particular background. In fact, like the broad and different education backgrounds is actually welcomed and important, and you don't need that to get involved in like a huge movement. So like this really made me realize that like it's a matter of also like, you know, like you sought out those opportunities yourself, and that's very similar to what happened to me, was like keeping up with like current climate events and enrolling in online courses, and then working on community-based like energy projects like my student energy chapter is what really accelerated my entrance into sustainable energy. And so I'm also very thankful and fortunate for those opportunities with student energy. So it's nice to hear that we kind of share that same experience.
Amazing. And Paula, does your experience similar or differ from your other regional coordinators here?
Well, it's quite similar. And I'm sorry if sometimes I say bad words or I don't speak really well in English. I'm a Spanish speaker, so it's quite difficult sometimes for me. But it's amazing what Tiana and Lynette say. It's right, because I don't have an energy background, and I also, like Tiana, I'm just waiting to do my master, maybe, but I'm like just looking for the perfect energy program in which I could be part of. But like listening to them, it's interesting because the Global Youth Energy Outlook is really open. And for example, something that it's really interesting of my region is that energy education in young people, it's very, very necessary, because I have been working with the Student Energy and the Global Youth Energy Outlook, but there are not so many movements of energy or things like that. So I saw how important is that we could start being part of big or small movements related with energy transition or climate change. But no matter your language, your background, even your country, because you can work here and work with another organization in Brazil, in Chile, in Peru. So that is how you connect. So it was really important for me that like to connect with different backgrounds, and I was amazed by how many different backgrounds were necessary for the Global Youth Energy Outlook, because in the Outlook or in the energy system you need socialists or people who study the social part of the energy transition, the economic part, the policies, the industrial part. So it's really important to have like these different backgrounds to build this transition that we want. So, but this transition needs to be for everyone, and for that you need to take different backgrounds and ideas and points of view. So it was really interesting to be part of this project until now.
Amazing. Yeah, I love how you all come from different perspectives and different backgrounds, and it really just shows that anyone who does want to be involved in the energy industry, it sounds sometimes a little bit overwhelming maybe to youth out there, but really you guys have shown really with all your different backgrounds that anyone can be involved, and you just really need to start and get yourself out there. Helen, was there anything else that you wanted to add on that specific point?
I feel like it was so well covered by all of you that I only want to echo what you all said. As young people, feeling imposter syndrome and feeling like you don't have something to bring to the space, especially if you don't come from what you kind of consider to be a technical degree or background, is something that is such a shared experience with youth around the world, regardless of kind of where we come from and where we're starting from. But, you know, something that I would put out there as a message to young people is your lived experience is valid experience, and your knowledge as a young person is valid knowledge. And that's all absolutely critical and important for shaping what we want our future to look like. So really just underscoring what's already been said. And like Paula said, you know, find your communities. They don't need to be local, but local community is so important as well. But find your communities locally, regionally, globally. Find groups of people. We have strength in numbers, as the Global Youth Energy Outlook is proving. And so find those people who can kind of, you know, share those values and that mission with you and kind of lift you up, and that you can learn from and exchange knowledge with. And that's a really important place to start as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Helen, for that point. And so moving on to our next question here, I was wondering if you could each speak to maybe give some examples from your region on how you really hope that this report will really influence your government going forward in the upcoming months and years. So I'll open this up to anyone who has some examples they'd love to give.
I can start. I think to understand where I want this, like how I want governments to use this report, I kind of have to start with an experience I had a few years ago when I went to an energy policy conference, not the CEM12, but I went as a youth delegate. And before going into an event, I had a chat with a policy officer who reminded me that I'm fairly privileged. I'm able to be at this event, and he reminded me that my visions for a clean energy future are not necessarily representative of visions of the rest of Europe's young people or the young people of the world. And I do agree that there tends to be kind of a misrepresentation in the energy sector, but also sometimes even in the youth space, where I think energy is doing an amazing job at kind of fighting this. But I think this is definitely one of the opportunities where everyone get a chance to be heard, and it provides youth delegates with some very comprehensive data that can be used to support their arguments and the lived experiences we have, and show that, okay, like 50% of us have never been asked about climate or energy issues. Maybe that's a mistake. Maybe you should start asking us. So it's just really giving a backup, and also the regional roadmaps provide an opportunity to show like, okay, the majority of young people in this region believe this and want their energy future to look like this. And of course, there's a group that might have different visions, but then there are the regional dialogues that can kind of support and go in depth on what some of the conflicts might be. And I think that's just really, really powerful. And I think governments at all levels should really take this report to them when it's published and look at the results. But I also want to emphasize that I do think it's important that it doesn't become a sleeping pillow or it's seen as an end goal, because it's really just the beginning. It's an opportunity to realize what's wrong in the current energy space and create incentives for governments to increase representation in the decision making, both by bringing in youth, but also by bringing in other groups that haven't been represented in the space.
Thank you, Lynette. And Paula, Tiana, did you want to add anything on from your perspectives or some examples of things that you are hoping for the future of your different regions?
Yeah, Jackie, I would love to. Honestly, I feel like Lynette hit a lot of important pieces, so it's hard to really. I just also wanted to kind of echo that. I really just hope that governments work more collaboratively to achieve the climate and energy goals outlined in the final results of the Global Youth Energy Outlook. But I think it's really important what Lynette said is it shouldn't just be the final stage. It should be seen as the beginning of to kind of accelerate more initiatives moving forward. But I think it also just proves that international collaboration, particularly in youth international collaboration and involvement, is really important in the energy transition, and involving youth in these big decisions. Like Helen said, there are 2 billion youth currently on the planet, so we do make up a large percentage of the population. So it is important that we and governments, if governments can use the outlook as a basis to design different tools and frameworks for the energy mix for different systems, just for everyone living on the planet. But really, I think it's just should be used as proof that we are powerful and can make difficult decisions. But also, I think personally, on a more personal note, what I hope governments do with the outlook is that they see that if they just being an Indigenous youth active in the energy transition, I really want governments to include more land-based Indigenous knowledge when they're making land-based climate decisions. Is just something that I really hope to see following the outlook.
Yeah, I agree totally with Tiana Lynette. For example, something that it is really cool of the outlook. It's just, for example, I have shared the outlook with some other politicians in my region and some other big organizations, and they were asking me, and what will happen after the COP26? Is that going to be the end? And I said, oh no, my God, the COP26 will be just the start of the Global Youth Energy Outlook as a tool. So come on, and it was really interesting because, for example, in the regional dialogues are maybe understood that really young people have a different point of view for the energy system in general. That, for example, I would like that in my region, we were talking about energy poverty. I would like that the regional governments or the governments in my region could apply to have, I don't know, a 100 access to electricity by 2030. But we were talking with young people how that energy policy was to build, to be efficient, sustainable, and more things. But what I saw as crucial, it was I don't know, uh, politicians and policymakers, decision makers have a way to build a policy, an energy policy or any kind of policy. But young people have a different point of view. They can give some other ideas and they can be they have an imagination, they have critical uh, critical messages, ideas that are different. And sometimes with that, if that policymakers could take into account that different point of view, the energy policies for the future could be more efficient. We were talking about energy poverty and we're saying, okay, we need to have renewable energy projects in indigenous communities. But then as young people, we were saying, okay, you need renewable energy projects and renewable energy policy, but you need that policy to take into account energy governance in indigenous communities. You need to have a planification or a planification for maintenance of renewable or the solar panels or things like that. It was a different dialogue because I saw that every young person has a different point of view and something to give to the energy policies in general. So, for example, a message that I would like to give are to policy makers and decision makers in two ways. first the present governments. I'm sure that the present governments in our regions need surely to take into account young people in the decision making process for energy. But I would like also to speak for the next or for the future governments, because we have like here Tiana tomorrow could be the energy ministry of Canada, or Lynette also in Denmark. So that is quite amazing, because we can give like this present message to the present governments, like to say you need to take into account this young people, because we're like powerful leaders and things like that, but also we can empower the next generation of governments taking the energy transition that is being built now into a next level. So that experience is really impressive, and I would like to say young people are quite important, and surely the global youth energy outlook will change the future and the energy story. So that's all.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. We're coming to the end of our panel, but I may ask you just all within 30 seconds to succinctly say your final message to the energy community. So I will start you off with Lynette. Just a quick wrap up, your very final thought right here.
I think we have actually, I want people to listen to the entire session, because I feel we have been touching upon so many important issues, but I think representation is key if we want to ensure that the clean energy transition is both fair and just. So I think more intergenerational collaboration and more youth engagement and more engagement of groups that hasn't traditionally been heard is really what we need to do. And then I think every government should read the outcome of the global youth energy outlook to make sure that they do make these, like, what is it called, like collaborative decision making processes.
Amazing. Perfect. Tiana?
So thank you. So really, just above all, partnership and collaboration is really important and key. We cannot achieve these goals without it. Also, we cannot lose sight of the main picture and our roadmap to a sustainable energy future, like, must be carefully followed to ensure that the future is sustainable for generations to come, and also whilst providing like proper skill training for future jobs in these different sectors.
Perfect. And I'll let Paula take the final word here.
Okay. As you like to say, like what Tiana and Lynette say, that governments need to take into account young people in the decision-making process, but also to say to people that join this movement, be part of it. Don't be afraid to be part of the energy transition, because the energy transitions need to be for everyone and need to be like really intergenerational. We need to work each other, and we can do it. So we need everyone to be part of the global youth energy outlook and the energy transition in general. That was
amazing. You're all so succinct. Thank you all for your amazing points, and your energy and your passion. It really shines through with everything you do. And I am so excited to continue working with you and to see the awesome final results of this report. And with that, I will hand it over to Helen for the final word.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. I believe we're going to have a slide with some information about how to reach out to us. If you do have any questions or are interested in working with Student Energy, we are always very interested in exploring more partnerships where young people can really be empowered to lead and collaborate with actors who are driving leadership on the clean energy transition. So don't hesitate to reach out. We look forward to sharing the Global Youth Energy Outlook with you when the virtual platform launches in November. And until then, stay safe and keep accelerating the sustainable energy transition. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you.